Okay, welcome everyone at home who's joining us for Fashion Minority Alliance's first digital festival. Thank you for joining us. We are in conversation with the incredible Daniel Martin. My name is Julie. I'm a creative consultant and artist that helps brands with PR and marketing strategies and materials and developing brand guidelines. And I'm just going to give a quick intro to Daniel. We're incredibly honored to be in conversation with you today. He's an award-winning makeup artist based in New York. Daniel's work has been featured in Vogue, Elle, Interview, Harper's Bazaar, and he's also one of 2 makeup artists to work on the iconic, historic, all-Black issue for Vogue Italia. His diverse roster of celebrity A-listers has included Elizabeth Moss, Priyanka Chopra, Jessica Biel, Gemma Chan, and Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. He is the person behind her incredible wedding day makeup. And he's also the global director of education and artistry for Tatcha Beauty, making him the first Asian American to hold the global director position at a beauty brand, which is an inspiration for Asian American and people of color everywhere. So Daniel, please tell me, what do all of these things mean, and how do you fit it all in?
Oh gosh, I was very fortunate that when the pandemic happened, my contract with Tatcha started, because up until that point, from March to I would say about June, July of that summer, I wasn't able to touch a face. So I was so fortunate that that happened when it did, because I went straight into marketing strategy, product development. The brand is based in San Francisco in California. So that was the only challenge really, was the time difference and having meetings with Japan, because the brand is inspired by Japanese culture, and our factory scientists labs are all in Kyoto. So that was the only challenge, was really dealing with the time difference. But I was just really lucky to be able to still do what I love, just in a different capacity.
I mean, you've been in this industry for over 20 years, like you've put in the work. So could you please tell us a bit about your creative journey? Like, where did you start and how did
Yeah, so I started working at, I got into makeup working at MAC at a department store here in the States called Nordstrom's. And Nordstrom's was based in Seattle. So I'm originally from Seattle. But I knew in my heart of hearts that art history wasn't my calling. And so this was like the early 90s. And I dropped out of college and moved to New York to be a club kid. And my parents weren't happy, but that's kind of where, my love of fashion and makeup really started. I mean, so much of my inspiration came from, what was happening in the streets of London. Like what, inspired Pat McGrath was definitely something that inspired me. So having that opportunity to assist her in the late 90s was incredible. So that's kind of like where it started. I started assisting, and then I went on my own and started building my own career from there.
That's amazing. You've spoken on your nomadic childhood. Do you think this kind of upbringing, together with your biracial heritage, influenced your path in life in terms of constantly wanting change and to express yourself?
Yeah, I definitely believe so. So from the age of 5 to 12, I grew up in Central America. And it was my first time really being exposed to such diversity. I just remember being a kid when we first moved there and looking at all the different faces and all the different colors, and they all spoke different languages. And my mom's Vietnamese, my father's French, but my mother never spoke Vietnamese with us. She was like, you're speaking English, you're assimilating. But then we moved to Central America. Our nanny was Panamanian, so we actually learned Spanish. So up until that point, I was speaking Spanish, French, and English, but yet I looked Asian. So it was kind of like this weird, ironic situation, because though I looked one way, I didn't speak one way. And then my name is obviously very white. So they were all confused.
I get that. Do you think there's a direct correlation between creativity and nomadism and what you've just explained in terms of like curiosity, not being afraid to be being different?
That is such a great question, because I feel like, being a person of color, you have these challenges that you kind of have to creatively either get yourself out of or accept, or kind of look at things outside the box, because we're not always presented with something in such a easy way. We have to kind of figure out a way to succeed, or figure out a way to, how do I get to, from A to B that isn't the trajectory that someone else would have. And I think so much about, I'm very fortunate that I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I've achieved a lot, and am proud of.
You have. Don't be shy.
So, and I always tell people, I tell a lot of the people that I mentor, don't concentrate and focus so much on the goal, but rather the journey. Because I think it's how you get somewhere that's equally as important as where you're trying to get to. And my success wouldn't have, happened if these incredible women lifted me up. I mean, I can honestly say that 99% of my success has been by women. And I would not be here if it wasn't for them. So being an ally is equally important. Just really understanding and reading the room. That's something that we all don't really tend to do, because we're so focused and just, we have this goal in our head, and there's ways of getting there. You just have to really understand your, journey and how to do that.
It's almost like you're saying, I guess, like your network can really help support you in your career and take.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's why I love FMA, because, here's this network that's global, and everyone who's involved is passionately wanting to make change. And, it just takes that one person to give you that strength and that courage to really make that difference. And that's what I'm hoping, is that, we have this opportunity now to open doors for so many people. And really, if we want to see change happen, we have to be a part of it. We have to show example of how to do that.
So true. For someone who's interested in entering the beauty industry and they have no contacts, they're trying to get their foot in the door, what advice would you have for them, like in terms of approaching someone they'll be maybe interested in working with, or trying to make those connections?
Yeah, I think it's, groups like ours that really, can really embrace that and really kind of point them in the right direction. I know that when I started, there was no internet, there was no, you were literally cold calling agencies to even see if you can just either assist or just meet with someone that you wanted to assist with. And now with social media, you have the ability to reach out to someone directly. And then sometimes they get back to you, sometimes they don't. So what I love about this network is that we will definitely try to place, and try to help those who really want to get into this business, because there is so much opportunity. It's just trying to, get that one opportunity, that one break to do that. But it's also a lot of work. And that's something that I really want people to understand, is that, you having this opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a successful journey. There's a lot of work involved. You learn so much on the job of how things get done. You can't just show up and say, I'm going to, beat a face and turn it out. That's never going to happen, because there's so many little things involved. So that's part of the journey as well that I hope we get to educate people with.
Absolutely. And fast forward to today, the last year and a half has been difficult for everyone. How did the pandemic and lockdown affect you and your artistic output?
I love that question, because I think everyone on the planet had to sit and kind of reassess and reevaluate what you know, what would make them truly happy and how to achieve that, because we were all leveled out in one way or another. Do you know what I mean? It was just like we all were affected by this. And for me, I really took a look and just realized how fortunate I was in my position and how I can uplift. And, you know, because of that, my introduction to FMA, my involvement with our mentorship at my agency, it really made me understand and just, you know, want to pay it forward, because that's what this business is all about. You get to a point where, you know, you've created the success that you wanted, but you have to share that. What's the point of holding on to it if you can't share it?
Yes, opening more doors. Absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Were there any positives that you learned from the past 18 months that apply in your daily life and good resolutions?
Oh gosh, these are such great questions, Julie. Positives. If anything, it made me realize, you know, the thing about makeup is that you can wash it off and put it back on. It's not so deep. It's not heart surgery. I knew two people close that passed of COVID, and it really made me just understand about being in the moment and being present. And if it's not life or death, you know, then you can figure it out. And if anything, it's just made me just take a deep breath and not try to do so much, if that makes sense. Because up until the pandemic, I was on a plane every month for 3 years. Oh, wow. And 6 months in, I think that 6 months, I reconnected with my husband, I reconnected with my cat. We had moved to a different neighborhood. So it was just kind of getting back to the basics. And that's what I missed. And if anything, it's just, I really hope that, you know, the pandemic enabled a lot of us to reset and just reevaluate what truly makes us happy.
Yeah, I agree. So again, we've mentioned that you're biracial. How do you allow each facet of your biracial identity to breathe within your work?
Oh gosh. Girl, these questions are so good. I can't even answer them. I was not ready. Gosh, that's such a great question, because I feel like, any person of color wants inclusion wherever they, whatever opportunity they have. They don't want it to be based on the color of their skin. They want it to be based on experience, merit. But I definitely believe that my grandmother, who was French, she definitely influenced my creativity. I grew up not really knowing my mother's side of her family because they were killed in the war, in the Vietnam War. So it was a really, really traumatic experience for her. It was like, don't even ask, they're dead, don't even go there. So we just never pressed it with her. So my father's mother was definitely the one that kind of harnessed my creativity, embraced my artistic side. And she was the first one that gave me like a coloring book and crayons. And she always encouraged art. She always encouraged creativity. So I was very, very fortunate to have that support. I didn't know until my, late teens, early 20s that makeup was something that I would be interested in. But she was definitely a person that supported me along the way.
And that, it seems like she's the one that brought that spark in you to really go on this path. That's totally amazing. What can the beauty industry do to overcome tokenization and embrace intersectionality?
Gosh, we need to hire more people of color in C-suite positions, because it literally, especially in beauty, starts at the top. If you look at the large conglomerates, the L'Oreals, the Estee Lauders, all of them are white males. And it's really crazy to think that on that top level, from L'Oreal, LVMH, Estee, white males have dominated the beauty industry, kind of telling women how they should look. So that right there needs to change. We need to see more color. We need to see diversity. We need to see a lot more inclusion. We had this movement last summer, socially, that allowed everyone to kind of come to terms with the fact that that was a big challenge. But to be honest, nothing's really happened since then. Wow. So yeah, especially here in the States, it's just, we have to really take a look at that and re-strategize, because
that's very interesting, because that actually I was leading onto that with my next question. Since Blackout Tuesday, Black Lives Matter was basically at the forefront of social media, all the brands saying Blackout Tuesday, Black Squares. I was going to ask you, have you seen any changes within these brands, especially the ones that did post Black Squares? Have they?
I mean, to be honest, like, no one's sharing the numbers. There's only so much that you can see on your phone that is like a blanketed performative thing. But when you get down to it, what social change has really happened since then? And, I just hope that it doesn't become this performative thing now where there's no accountability. And we need to get the journalists in there to really do the deep dive to see what has changed since then. What are the brands who have stepped up or who have been a part of, I know that Sephora has said, we're going to give a percentage of space, retail space, to Black-owned businesses. But we haven't really heard what those brands are, where they're at in the stores, and what their numbers are. So it's like we need to do another follow-up to kind of see what the change has been. And absolutely. We haven't seen it. Just saying.
I mean, maybe now they may take notes from you.
Let's see.
How do you incorporate inclusion within your own work?
Gosh, a lot of my assistants in the past have been people of color, and it's not like and I think I subconsciously chose that. Like right now here in the States, Aya Tariq, who's from Saudi Arabia, she's been an incredible partner for us here and for Barbara and I trying to get FMA going here in the States. And I really feel like we need to embrace more diversity to really prove and really show that we can have these types of positions. So yeah, that's a big focus. I think it's not been, it's just one of those things that just happens. And like-minded people gravitate to like-minded people. And that's something that we really, really want to focus on moving forward, is really having an inclusive group here in North America for FMA. But we also need, our white allies as well to open those doors for all of us and say, hey, this person has merit, they have talent, they can do the job. So.
Absolutely, without making it look like tokenism as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. There's a huge issue of colorism in the beauty industry, as well as in the Black community and also Asian communities. How can we combat this, ensure representation of all Black and people of color with darker skin tones in the media, films and campaigns, also within other communities, are equally represented?
So much of it is education. I think we need to speak about this openly of why there is colorism within these ethnic groups. I know for Asia, we all tend to, a lot of people forgot this, but Japan colonized Korea. So there's always been this hierarchy of where these countries lie and where everyone falls underneath. And it's a generational challenge that we need to change. And it kind of starts with Gen Z really speaking up and speaking out about, why this is such an issue. Because our parents' generation, they're kind of stuck in their ways. It is what it is with them. And it's just, I'm a Gen Xer. The millennials need to say something. So it's just, we need to educate, and we need to find the courage to do that, because I think a lot of people don't have the courage to speak up.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's also a thing about fear as well. People are terrified of saying the wrong thing or saying something and then getting backlash or blacklisted. But as you said, it is very important. More of us should be speaking out, definitely. That leads me on to my next question. What has been the biggest challenges you faced so far in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, wow. Biggest challenges. That is such a great question. I think for an artist or a creative, it's just knowing their worth and sticking up for themselves. I'm very fortunate that I have a team that I work with, that I can bounce ideas with, that, I think you should take this job. I don't think you should take this job, and this is why. A lot of people don't have someone to almost protect them, so to speak. So it's just, having the courage to stand up for your worth, and, especially when it comes to pay. Like, if someone's giving you this rate and they're asking you to do 2 jobs at a lower fee, you need to be able to have the courage to stand up and say, hey, why am I doing this job? Because you're dropping the rate and you're asking me to do both hair and makeup. Or, a stylist is having to do the returns, do the post, call in everything. There's just so much that, us artists deal with, but we don't always have the courage or the strength to say, hey, this isn't fair, this isn't right. So I think if anything, if I could share any kind of advice, it's to really find your strength and your courage to say no. Because as though we want to always, take the job and, do the work, there comes a time when you have to stick up for yourself. And I think for me, having that courage earlier would have definitely helped.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a thing of where a lot of people, in my early days in the career, I was afraid to say no. And in terms of pay and just, being underpaid or not paid at all,
right?
And you should feel grateful to even be in the room, sort of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's very difficult. How did you overcome that feeling of like, you should feel lucky to be here, and then really understand that, hold on, I know my worth. This is what I'm going to agree to. This is what I'm not going to agree to.
Right. I think it was when one of my agents basically explained to me why. Because I was like, oh, I think I should do this job because I've worked with them for so long, blah, blah, blah. But they wanted to drop the rate. And she was like, no, and this is why you shouldn't do it. And I was like, oh. And then they agreed. They understood. So a lot of it is just understanding or having that one person that's going to stick up for you. And I think as a mentor, that's where we can go in and encourage someone, hey, if you don't want to do something, don't do it, but you should explain and know why you don't want to do it. And I think that's the hardest part, is though you have a visceral reaction to saying no, you need to also understand why and let that person also know. And that's something that we don't do.
Absolutely.
And it could be just an easy conversation. It doesn't need to be defensive or confrontational. You can just graciously explain to them why you don't feel comfortable doing that job, or why you don't feel comfortable in a situation.
Yeah. And I think the more you do it, the easier it gets. So
yeah, totally.
yeah.
100%. And then you feel good. You feel like, wow, I stood up for myself. Because this business is so much about relationships, but also too, you need to find, those people that are also going to take care of you.
I love that. Definitely. That's great advice. Thank you. What has been the highlight of your career so far? I mean, I know you've had so many incredible experiences, but tell us some of your favorites.
Okay, this is going to sound really bizarre, but it made me understand the value that this person had for what I was able to contribute to her work and to her. So I was working with this bridal designer for over, 12 years. Her name was Amsala, and she's Ethiopian. And when I first met her, I remember, and this is back in the day when you had to carry your portfolios. It was like this big book and it was heavy. And she was going through my book and she's looking at all my editorials and all this stuff. She's like, yeah, I can see that you can do makeup, but I don't understand your point of view. And that always sat with me, because there's so many artists out there that can do beautiful work, but if you don't have a point of view, and someone can look at something that you've done, be like, oh, I know he did hit that makeup. It's like you have a stylist that does these incredible editorials and you're like, oh, I know Carl Templer did that. Or I know, this person did this. It's like a photographer. You can look at a photograph and be like, oh, Stephen Klein shot that, Mizell shot that, whichever. So I was working with Amsala for over 12 years, lookbook, runway. And then she had cancer for 3 years and didn't tell any of us. And then she passed. And I found out on a Friday. And on Monday, her family reached out to me and they were going over will stuff and all of that. And in her will, she had asked if I could do her makeup for her passing. So for the wake. And I'd never, ever gotten a job request like that before. And I did it. Me and my assistant did it. We went to the funeral home. And it was the most cathartic experience of my career. Because here's a person that I collaborated with for over 10 years. And to know that she trusted my work to make her feel good to go wherever she wound up going was the biggest compliment, I think, of my career.
That's incredible. I'm even
speechless. I have to say I did take an edible because I needed to get into that mindset. And she looked amazing, but yeah, it was just that moment. And it was just so cathartic. And I think for any creative to have, and I'm not saying that you have to do dead people now, but to really understand, someone appreciating what you do in such a way is the biggest compliment.
Yeah, definitely. How would you define your point of view, or like in your own words, your style, your blueprint, I guess?
I think for me, it's so much about, enabling the person that I'm working with to own their own beauty. So much of my work is about skin and really pulling out someone's, feature, and just, there's a confidence that you get from the work that I do with these women that you kind of see past the makeup and you see them. And I think for Megan on her wedding day, that's what you saw.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about her or this cat eye or this smoky eye or whatever. You saw her. And I think that is kind of like my point of view, is being able to have someone confident and comfortable in their own skin that you don't even see their makeup.
Yeah, I definitely saw that when I was looking at the makeup look. What you described, completely on point. Makeup can be a form of personal expression and a reflection of society's zeitgeist. What are your predictions for inclusion for the next few years?
Oh gosh, it's going to be just embracing the diverse skin tones, hair, individuality. I think that's going to be a big thing, is just understanding individuality, and people are going to be owning their own style again. I feel like for the last 15 years, so much of, though I love fashion, we've lost a lot of sense of style. And so much about style is putting things together and kind of creating that individuality. Yeah, you can wear fashion, but there's not a lot of people with great style. And I hope that that's what we get to see in the future.
Absolutely. And final question, what advice would you offer to aspiring and emerging makeup artists?
Oh gosh. I always, in my brain, I always treat my first job as if it's my last. Because at the end of the day, we're being hired to perform a service. And we're very fortunate to, balance art and commerce with our work. And I think if anything, it's really having an understanding that we're going in to a job, and not only are we going to visually make them look as beautiful as they can be, but also know that you're there to make them feel good. And if you don't make them feel good, whoever you're working with will remember that before they remember the work that you do. So I always tell my assistants, go in humble, go in with an incredible attitude, be happy, you're in their face. They're the first person you see. Your energy is the first thing that they feel. So you have to not only make them look good, but you have to make them feel good. Because if you don't make them feel good, they're not going to be happy in their makeup, and they're not going to take a good picture. That's just all there is to it.
And I can just tell that just from speaking to you, you just seem so humble and calm. And even though we're not in person, I can feel like your good energy through the screen. So that was amazing.
We're just very fortunate to be in this position that we get to do what we love and make money doing it. And you have to share that, because not a lot of people ever get to experience this or get that feeling of like wanting to go to work. So yeah, I've been really, really blessed with this incredible opportunity, and I have to share it.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. It was so nice to meet you.
So lovely to meet. Everything you've said was so inspirational and just amazing. Thank you to everyone who joined us at home. We are going to be back on Saturday at 3 p.m. UK time, where we'll be taking live questions. And I think that's it. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you again.
Yes,
thanks,
I'll
guys.
see you again. Thank you.